So in my dissertation, I'm looking at how Ecuador's national petroleum refinery, this is it, impacts the city of Esmeraldas, where it's located. In a more philosophical sense, I'm looking at how do different materialities of oil both limit and create new possibilities for citizenship, as oil can engender a range of sentiments from belonging to distrust. So in 1970, when they built the refinery, they promised that the city of Esmeraldas, which had traditionally been marginalized and is also traditionally Afro-Ecuadorian, they promised that it would become a modern industrial center for the country, becoming the linchpin of the national economy, as all crude and refined petroleum products flow out of it. What was happening in those last couple of slides is, as the state made these promises, they also reinforced them with spectacles where people actually took crude oil and blessed themselves with it like it was holy water, trying to tap into the power and potential of petroleum to engender a better future. 30 years later, it has a very different relationship. It never materialized the jobs that it was promised. It never had the wide-ranging economic impact promised, and it's become kind of a cancer in the community as it expels pollution across a huge swath of neighborhoods. This problem in Ecuador, they call it phantom citizenship. It's citizenship without substance. So in 2008, the government actually was taken over by a new party who called their project the Citizens' Revolution, where they promised to create a new substantive citizenship for all Ecuadorians by correcting inequalities in the system, by basing politics on respect, harmony, and equality, and trying to just create stronger links to citizens. And one of the big tactics was by redistributing oil wealth. And one of the metaphors is inside of the circle you're safe, so it's creating new relationships to people. So what they were promising was to create security. But the problem with this is, as they did it, they didn't necessarily follow the values that they were promoting. And this is what happened in my field site. These are teachers, police, and just regular people protesting. And what it was is, it always comes back to how the changes were implemented, not necessarily what the changes are themselves, but they constantly created new tensions. So I'm going to give 3 quick examples. This is a Petro-Ecuador laborer, and these workers were actually promised better jobs. They were long-term contract laborers who were promised new permanent positions by the new constitution. And instead, the Petro-Ecuador had a new mandate to cut the workforce. So these workers, instead of being employed as permanent workers, were just cut and severed from the company. So they lay down in the street, stuck hypodermic needles in their arm, and bled out onto the pavement in protest. Another issue I'm looking at is how people talk about indexing petroleum pollution. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes you can just point to it and it's right there. But in other times, it's much harder. And what this actually is a photo of a gas that you can't see. What's awesome about the photo, though, is it reaffirms that what's actually happening with the guy in the foreground holding his nose shut. The problem with gas releases is they usually are the first sensory element that tells you that there's going to be an industrial accident or something like that. So what you do is you look over the hillside right where this photo is, the refinery's on the other side of the hillside, and this is kind of a way of intersubjectively sharing what's happening. Another issue, I was in Esmeraldas in their wettest winter ever, and it caused massive problems. There were water failures, there were problems with the roads, and that was my neighborhood, and we had up to a meter of mud on some streets. One of the effects of this was that we had massive potholes, and this is about the size of a small car. And what was interesting is even though electricity and water were failing, potholes, which are another materiality of oil, are what actually organized people to protest against the government. Because it's kind of a universal experience. If you have a car, you're worried about it destroying your tires. If you're on a bus, it's just pain. Like whenever you hit one going at a bus like 70 miles an hour through the city, it goes straight up your lumbar spine. And therefore, it's actually this really interesting thing that unites people in protest. And this is the Citizens' Revolution isn't neutral. The government kept asserting that there's a revolution underway. But what really ends up happening is that the revolution has the potential to do something, the new constitution and the new government, but it ends up just kind of stalled. Thank you.